Hey Gobs, welcome to the first episode of hopefully many to come of RPG horror stories. I've got a couple lined up today, so hopefully they're entertaining. I will read a little bit and give my feedback on it. I'll try not to interrupt as much as possible, but if there's something I really want to speak up on, I just have to stop and share what I think. So without further ado, we're going to jump right into these horror stories. Alright, to start the story off, I'm going to take a minute to introduce us all. We're all relatively new to D&D, but we did have a blast with this simple homebrew campaign that was a Darkest Dungeon D&D mix. It was our second one at the time, excluding DM. It was his third. DM. He played a DM PC with us named Nar Alma, who was a rogue. He was a hypersexual, kleptomaniac daredevil who had a weird obsession with treasures, and was a fun character to roleplay with and be around. Me. I played an undead skeleton named Reaper, who was also a rogue. He was meant to look intimidating at first, but he's a jolly good fella to be around when you talk to him. He also likes to use expressions like knocking on his door when describing death. DM's boyfriend, KT. He played a elven sorcerer named Natila Ferrer. Her personality is hard to pinpoint, but it was whatever he wanted at the time. Problem player, Weirdo. He played a panda-angel hybrid paladin by the name of Mother Myra. She was a woman of the church who was supposedly loving and caring, but all this went to crap very quickly. He also had a problem with role-playing and didn't chime in that often. Interesting characters. But I won't judge. Just that panda-angel hybrid. Very... not hard to imagine, but it's very goofy to imagine, especially in a Darkest Dungeon D&D mix. A very, Darkest Dungeon is very dark. We all started out meeting in a capital Ritland. DM and KT were playing characters called Ravik, Sakir, and Gondo, but they weren't important as they were dropped quickly for Nahar and Natila, respectively. Myra was attempting to forcefully take care of Ravik without his input through session 1. And Reaper shut her down quickly at the start of session 2. Then Ravik disappeared. Nahir was introduced by stealing a chest from a nearby homeowner, then finished them off and killing them. Myra knew Reaper and Nar, but Reaper and Nar didn't know each other. Myra scolded Nar like a child for not hiding the body before he looted the chest, but Nahar ignored and continued. This was only a sewing kit, and the character got upset before tossing away. We took a minute to roleplay before Myra bought up a dungeon. Nihar, fueled by the prospect of treasure, and Reaper just being there to support them, decided to go. Already off to crazy, but I mean, if the group's having fun, and, everyone doesn't really care, I guess it doesn't matter. The whole killing the homeowner, just to seal chests. Very, very telling so far. There were 3 royal knights guarding the dungeon, and we all went for distracting them. Nahar pulled the first guard away into an alley after a successful charisma check. Weirdo rolled to seduce the next one, despite his character being a woman of the church, and actually succeeded. I'm sorry for saying this, but he roleplayed his character slipping her pants down and showing I'm not reading all that. All 3 of us lost it. We made fun of him for it and poked fun at it as friends would. She didn't grab the... Grabbed it, dragged him off, ignoring him questioning why, since she was a member of the church, and since I was a skeleton and I couldn't do that, even then my character wouldn't. Took the 3rd tire knight and let him fall asleep on my lap, rubbing his back. What is this story? I'm sorry. This story's crazy. No, once they had came back, it was normal for Nara, but Weirdo had Myra's... You'll see it on screen, but this is... We collectively thought it was weird, and we laughed and asked him why. He said it would to spice it up. It was more fuel to the mocking fire, but he didn't mind since we continued role-playing. I gently put the tire guard on the ground, ripping off a piece of my tailcoat to cover him up. I'm glad I didn't have to fight him, because he was just doing his job. I also did this to get away from the insanity prior. We cleared a rebel and head into the dungeon. It was a catacomb. The first room was a prayer room, and then in the first combat encounter. Reaper opened a coffin to find haunted armor, and it was quickly dealt with. This was also when KT's character Natila came in. We continued to roleplay, ranting on the church, and surprisingly, Mara had no comment on it, despite the rude talk. During the time, wouldve privately messaged me regarding our two characters. This is when it all went to crap. Are you sure? Are you sure this is when? Are you sure it wasn't everything else before? Oh, this story is in of itself it's all horror, all of it. wouldve wanted to put my character Reaper into a relationship with his character Mira. He wanted Reaper not to remember. I thought this was extremely odd. I told him my character's backstory. I'll make it brief. Basically, Reaper rotted when he was alive and eventually manifested into the lovable skeleton. I said no, and Reaper was gay, really only because of what he was trying to do. And in fact, I really didn't want to roleplay as someone in a straight relationship when I myself was gay as well. It's just a personal preference. He accepted and moved on, thankfully. Before this, wouldve was thinking of plot twists for his characters. He eventually told us he wanted his character to be a succubus. DM had questioned him why, asking when she's already a member of the church and she would get hurt by holy stuff. wouldve decided he wanted to be both and couldn't be hurt by holy things, and that she was more than a succubus. We all told him no, and that he couldn't control our characters. He had Nahar be Mira's godson, making her his godmother, and changed the story up. I can't remember correctly, but at one point I think she wanted the king to be her father, but the DM shut her down. He eventually, after a long talk, just had DM lazily killed Mira off, and didn't play with us a good chunk of the campaign, only towards the end of it. With me, DM, and KT, we all had a blast together for the remainder until it ended sadly. We always tried to get wouldve to come back and play with us more, as he was so a friend, and despite the weirdness, we did enjoy playing with him to some extent. He made up excuses and didn't play with us in forever. After that campaign ended, we made a new one with wouldve in it as well. But it's another semi-horror story for another time, and I'll tell it if people want to. Concluding notes from the Goblin King himself. This entire story is insane. I mean, it's not that crazy. A lot of it's just like weird in-game actions, and if they were just super uncomfortable, they could just talk to the player afterwards. And then I know it's if they're your friends, you don't want to kick your friends out, but I mean, sometimes they could be good friends. They just suck to play with in a tabletop role-playing game. So I think mostly just talk to him about everything and that happened in the game and outside of the game. I think that would be the best bet. And if that doesn't solve anything, probably just don't make campaigns with him or not invite him back, or just try to find a way to let him down gently, that his actions were not preferred and that he wasn't able to fix them. So, but I mean, always open to giving people more chances, especially since it's just a friend game. I mean, everything in here was crazy. Just some really weird stuff that you got to see on screen that I didn't want to read out. But for the most part, just talk to the player. I think most of the time you can solve stuff with talking to the player. I think panda-angel hybrid was just a weird setup to fail, but I mean, some people can make it work. So for the most part, again, just talk to the player. And moving on to the next story. Story number 2 is brought us to by Standard War 8625. DMs engineer game against me, then eject me for lawful RPing. Hey y'all, first time, long time, I very much appreciate the avenue to finally express this story fully. First up, a little background. So I was mostly a Call of Cthulhu / Shadowrun kid coming up, but I always wanted, like a proper, meat and potatoes D&D experience. Don't we all? So when a group of dudes I knew offered to finally start up a regular game, I was way excited. I bought the, at the time, 4E new starter set. I wrote up a Wood Elf Paladin and basically ran to the first session with bells on and all my materials at ready. I will be joining 2 rotating DMs, both of whom had player characters, a human sorcerer and a half-orc druid, another new player, human ranger, and another longtime friend of the DM's, a Kender rogue. By the way, I'm told everything I've prepared is wrong, as these DMs only accept 3.5 edition and won't be switching mechanics ever. Remember this because it becomes important. Being the eager sap, I say, no problem, and then start to transpose my character into 3.5. I'm then hit with my second red flag. The narrative will only be playing out as apparently a sequel to this massive years-long campaign the DMs and the Kender rogue played out previously during college. The human sorcerer is a returning character, and the world itself a complex amalgamation of Dragonlance, Eberron, and Forgotten Realms, all which I'm only passively familiar with at this point. Yeah, that kind of sucks when you go out. I mean, I guess in a way, kind of on the poster a bit, he should have checked with what edition they were playing before going out and buying the book, or the new starter set anyways, for being told that everything they prepared was wrong. I mean, that's one way to avoid it, but this sounds like it happened a really long time ago, since there was 4E coming out, which is 2009? Somewhere around there? Where did he say he saw the red flag? Yeah, being a sequel to another campaign ran by the other 3 players can kind of feel bad if you weren't in on the campaign and they're just, like, bringing you in here, but yeah, I mean, as long as it all works and everyone agrees, I mean, it's not too bad, but I think this is like a session 0 where you talk about the expectations of the campaign. I think that would fix this so far, but let's move on. The entire time I was in the party, I pleaded for some sort of primer or even a quick download of what the story was so far, which apparently involved the world being completely rebooted once and the human sorcerer becoming the world's leading religious figure, but never got it. But again, I tried to make do, trying my best to play my character as I thought he should be played and keeping my actions within the lawful good territory. And for a bit, the game was actually pretty fun. We played through a castle siege and ousted a necromancer from a keep, which then became our base, and it was generally a good time. But as we progressed, I started to notice that, as I was the only lawful good character, the Kender rogue took a special interest in messing with me. I guess trying to find some sort of Flint/Tasselhoff vibe for the party, but it was always weirdly petulant. It was framed as role-playing moments, but mechanically he would just constantly steal either quest items or weapons, and the DMs would allow him to whisper what he was trying to steal to them before rolls. And then you would try to use something and they would say it wasn't in your equipment anymore, and the higher he would roll, the more important the item he would be taking. This happened constantly and often would put me and only me on the back foot for combat encounters, and went far beyond just Kender misplacing as it progressed. Yeah, that's extremely awful. Having another PC steal from a PC and just allowing it without the other person agreeing. That's just downright awful. I hate seeing it happen. I wouldn't let it happen, or personally I would mostly never be cool with it unless it was like very unique role-playing scenario, something for the scene or something along those lines. I mean, as long as both people agree to it, but obviously the poster didn't agree to having his stuff stolen and to letting the other DMs just do it. I would have spoken up about it. I would have just said something. If something didn't change, I guess you could leave. I can't remember if he said this was his friend or not. It just sounds like a group of dudes. So it's not like these are your friends. You're not like obligated to stay with this if you're not enjoying it. But let's move on. Then came the shift to Pathfinder. Okay. Yeah, I mean, 3.5 and Pathfinder are very similar. Pathfinder is more like a touch-up on 3.5. So, I can't imagine it being too bad, but Pathfinder is. I mean, it's still vastly different, even if they do have some similarities, but let's read on. In the middle of our 5th session, Kender Rogue and Human Sorcerer DM have this massive fight about a spell, down to pulling our older volumes of rulebooks, grinding the game to a halt mid-combat to try to improve their Santa's rate. Kender Rogue eventually huffs and puffs, and then eventually says, "This wouldn't happen if we were just playing Pathfinder." So Human Sorcerer DM screams back that, if he wants that, then by God, he'll get it. So now, I have to translate my character and find comparable equipment a third time with a rulebook I didn't even know or own for that matter. So now I'm both lost narratively and mechanically, but I still want to play, because nobody told me no D&D is better than bad D&D yet. So I'm trying to be the group's tank. The Kinder Rogue then takes a super weird turn. Now instead of stealing, he's trying to goad my character into unlawful acts. Casual murder, cruelty towards NPCs, just whatever opportunity presents. The DM thinks it's hilarious, and now these impasses are starting to show up in narrative. I was forced into working with evil wizards. I failed a death saving throw during a boss fight and was told my god didn't allow me into heaven, which I had turned into a character development, and was constantly shouted down when I objected in character to nonsense. Then Harrigood into not being a pussy because I was holding the game up. This comes to a head during our 10th session, where we come across a town that is under the thrall of a lich who is trying to sacrifice the townspeople to these wells of magic that will spawn more horrors if they are activated. We engage, but I am trying to focus on keeping the innocents out of the wells. I ask the party for help, especially the ranger because he's a pretty decent ranged sniper and has coded sleep darts from our loot table, but they all move down the map out of earshot. A townsperson slips by me, a child no less. My turn is interspersed with the rest of the party's push forward. I try a non-lethal attack. I'm told it's not enough to knock him out after my roll. I try a grapple. I'm told he slips out of my grasp after my roll. I try to wrap him up in a rope. I'm told the wrap snaps after my roll. I'm begging for someone to help me. A tanglefoot bag, a spell, anything. They don't hear me and continue to fight. Finally, with no spell slots and nothing else that could hold him, I try a pommel strike. Not knowing that in Pathfinder it's not a dazing attack, it's just an attack. DM Half-Orc Druid informed me that not only is this kid dead, but he also fell into the well, spawning a whole other wave, all of which are now focused on me. And the kicker? Since I've killed an innocent despite his possession by the lich, all my paladin powers are stripped and my attuned weapon and mount are now inactive. I'm devastated. I asked the rest of the party why they didn't help, and Kinder Rogue simply says, "We wanted to see what you would do." He then steals my sword and mount piece after I'm down. No one ever healed or buffed me, because I don't need them anymore, and the fight continues. Wow, that's crazy. That's crazy. First of all, the rolls on the person not working, on the kid not working, and then having an attack work first of all, it should specially be specified, like, hey, this is an actual attack, it's not a non-lethal attack. So first of all, that was just setting up to fail, because it feels like, obviously, the DM was waiting for the paladin just to do that, just so they could get a big kick out of it. That's what it feels like. It feels like the DM just specifically picking on the paladin, or they do all this and, kill the kid and knock him down the well. Or I can't say that. What's another word? Gamend? Is that... Gamend a kid. They, goblin stabbed a kid. Anyways, it sounds like this DM's just picking on this guy. That's obviously what the story of the title is. So yes, it's definitely, prevalent. They're just trying to dick this guy over. After Deception, I'm trying to get some clarity about what happened. And all Half-Orc DM tells me is that I needed to be checked because I was being moody, or, what would be the LOP version? Ploppy? No. No. We'll just say moody about everyone's fun. I point out that I'm just playing my character and class, and then he flatly tells me, "Yeah, well, it's more fun to see heroes fall." And when I press about this, citing that it's pretty crappy to hamstring the party's only take, he admits that the whole set piece was planned with Human Sorcerer DM with this very outcome in mind. Nothing I could have done would have mattered. Even if I would have rolled an insane amount of nat 20s, the kid was always going to target me, always going to die, and always triggered a trap. The only choice I would have would be deadly first, and both DMs were gleefully excited about that. Admittedly, I lose it. Not only am I just really sad about feeling like a total idiot for saying as long as I did with a party that was actively screwing me over for a goof, I tell them, if this is the case, then I'm going to be working against them in future sessions, and once more I'm insulted and called moody for reacting the way I did. immediately after I stopped going to sessions and tell the DMs just to write me out of this as if they want to play. I never played or talked to the group again, but was told by the human ranger that after my character died of white knight syndrome later after running into them. This was around 2010-2011, and I've only just now this year started to play games again, and I'm actually having a blast now. Thank you all for the time and platform to finally explode this to players and DMs that would understand. TLDR, rotating DMs stack game mechanics and narrative against me as a gag. So again, Session 0, that way you wouldn't have bought the 4E starter kit in the set, you would have just known you were playing 3.5, but then I think staying with the group for as long as you did, yeah, obviously, hindsight's 2020, and again, no D&D's better than bad D&D's, also another thing to add in there. The swap between systems, I can kind of get it, but I wouldn't do it in the middle of a campaign unless everyone agreed to it. It's kind of hard just to keep springing on a new rule set every time, so from 4E to 3.5 to Pathfinder, and then just to hold the DMs are just constantly out to get... Yeah, should have probably just left a long time ago, but again, hindsight's 2020. I think most of the time it's just talk outside the game about this stuff, rather than just sticking around to find out, like, hey, I'm not enjoying this, I'm not having fun, and then if they're like, well, you're just being moody, then just leave them. It's not, in this story, it wasn't like they were playing with a group of friends. It was just a group of guys that found and was invited to. So now if it was a group of friends, it might be harder. It's always harder if you're playing with a group of friends, but just this is just a group of guys. You could have just been told them, like, yep, I'm done, not changing, okay, I'm out, and just just leave, go find a better game. So I'm glad to see that they're having fun now. That's always a good thing. Rule number 1, have fun. That's it. I think those were 2 very long stories, so I hope you enjoyed listening to me reading them to you. I hope you enjoyed my advice. As to say these may or may not be real, that is up to you to decide. I am a dumb little goblin. I have absolutely no idea if the people writing these are telling the truth, but that's half the fun. It's even if they are fake, it's a fun theoretical story that you can put advice on and spread it around. I read that the first story, some people thought it was fake in the comics, but they had actual proof of it. So if the first story sounds fake, there's that. I mean, you can always go to the subreddit, find the original posts, inquire deeper if you so decide. To end this off, I'm not a licensed professional, obviously. I'm the Goblin King. That is my advice. Hope you guys have a lop of a day.